Trustee Aaron's?
Here.
Kammerer?
Here.
Carbonell?
Here.
Daney? Here. Hopkins?
Here.
Ranky?
Here.
President Wallace?
Here. I request Pastor Ian Simpkins to give our invocation this evening.
Good evening. Would you pray with me, please? Father, we want to first acknowledge that you are good. Forgive us of all the times that we so quickly jump to petition. God, we want to acknowledge how grateful we are that you would know us, that you would pursue us, that you are in our midst even now. I pray that tonight, that our conduct would bring you honor. I pray that you would be with our leadership, that you would give them wisdom and insight. I pray for our families. I pray for our communities, that they may know you more fully, that even as we gather tonight, that we would proclaim your goodness and that we would be more and more aware, God, of your presence here in Bartlett, in the greater Illinois area. God, the things that you're doing and stirring, may we have eyes to see how you want to use us and move in this community. I pray that you be with us tonight and that you would be glorified in all that we say and do. We pray these things in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Simpkins.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brings us to the consent agenda. All this items listed with an asterisk will be considered routine and enacted in one motion. There'll be no additional discussion on these items. With that being said, is there anything that anyone would like to add to the consent agenda this evening?
Yes, I'd like to add the, it is. I'd like to add F1, public internet auction of surplus property.
Okay.
F1.
One, the auction of surplus property.
Oh, okay. I can't, is your microphone on?
It is. I'll
Very good. Anything else? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to amend the consent agenda, which will then include the bills list, November 3rd, 2015. It'll include Planning and Zoning Committee, Bartlett Point West Preliminary Final Subdivision, Bartlett Point West Public Improvement Completion, and Bluff City South Business Park Property Public Improvement Completion. It will include the License and Ordinance Committee D1 BAPS Amplifier Permit Request, the D2 the BAPS Fireworks Display Permit Request, and D3 the Tall Grass Open Burn Permit Request, and adding F1 a Public Internet Auction of Surplus Property.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Aaron, seconded by Trustee Kammerer. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Ranky?
Yes.
Aaron's?
Yes.
Kammerer?
Yes.
Carbonell?
Yes.
Daney?
Yes.
Hopkins?
That motion carries. I'll entertain a motion to approve the amended consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Trustee Kammerer, seconded by Trustee Carbonell. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Aaron's?
Yes.
Kammerer?
Yes.
Carbonell?
Yes.
Daney?
Yes.
Hopkins?
Yes.
Ranky?
Yes.
That motion carries. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from October, the village board meeting and committee meeting from October 20th, 2015.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Trustee Ranky, seconded by Trustee Carbonell. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Kammerer?
Yes.
Carbonell?
Yes.
Daney?
Yes.
Hopkins? Ranky?
Yes.
Aaron's?
Abstain.
Motion carries. No treasurer's report this evening. First item that we have under President's report, we've requested our lobbyist, Tom Cullen, update us on some of the things that are going on, or maybe better said, not going on down in Springfield. Thank you, Tom. Mr. Cullen.
Thank you. And thank you, members. My name is Tom Cullen, and I am your lobbyist down in Springfield. And as the mayor said, there really isn't a lot going on down in Springfield. When the new governor, Bruce Rauner, was elected, he came in, he would say, under a mandate to make things different, to change things up in Springfield. And the reality is what has happened is that the General Assembly, which is supermajority Democrat, both in the House and in the Senate, have decided since May that they can't get along and work out a budget. And so the last time that the four leaders and the governor were actually in a room together was at the end of May to discuss the budget problems. Now, the good news is that some outside groups asked about 2 weeks ago for all the members, the leaders, and the governor to get back into a room and start to negotiate again on the budget. Everybody has agreed to do it, but what happened was the speaker said he would be willing to do it, Mike Madigan, if they did it at a public setting with the press involved. The governor said, hold on a second, what we need to do is let me put together an agenda, and we'll do this in private. The other leaders have agreed to that. The speaker has tentatively agreed to that as well, except to say that he said he wanted some input on the agenda on what they're going to talk about. What is happening is that the governor said that he has some items that he would call the turnaround agenda. And these items are workers' comp reform, prevailing wage, some things to do with some education items, items that he believes ultimately are needed to produce a better business climate in the state. He has asked for those items to be passed through the Democratic General Assembly, and once they are, he has said then he would entertain a tax increase. And what happened was when he came into office, the temporary income tax increase that we had expired, and because of that, the state is now down about $5 billion from that tax increase. Right now, we are on a path to be about $8 billion in debt because of the spending that they're doing, the spending that they have done in the past is keeping us about $8 billion in debt. So the Democrats would say, look, those are non-budget items, that turnaround agenda. Those are non-budget items. What we need to do is focus in on the budget. If we focus in on the budget, I'm sure that we can come up with some compromises in order to raise this additional revenue. The governor is holding his ground, and he's saying, look, until you're ready to entertain some of these items, I don't even want to talk. So November 17th, they're supposed to get together and start to hopefully produce some type of compromise. I will tell you from my standpoint is I would not expect anything to happen. The governor's already lowered the bar. He's already said publicly, look, I don't think much is going to happen. The fact of the matter is that right now, if anything were to happen in Springfield between now and the end of the year, between now and December 31st, there is a supermajority vote requirement. So that would take 71 members of the General Assembly to pass anything. After January 1st, it goes back down to a simple majority. So in the House, it's 60, in the Senate, it's 30 votes. At that stage of the game, I also think that because the vote requirement's down, there's probably a little more wiggle room where they potentially could compromise on some of these things. As I've told many people earlier today, this really, the budget I don't think is really the issue, because you can get a lot of smart people put into a room and it ultimately just becomes a math problem, and they can ultimately decide how they're going to solve that math problem. You know, they're going to put it together and say 2 + 2 = 4, or, you know, we have to raise additional revenue this way or that way. They have a lot of smart people that, you know how to do those things. The problem is that the governor wants to fundamentally change because he believes that that's why he was elected, some issues that are dear to the hearts of some Democrats. And so that's where we're getting a clash. It's really a difference between Democrats and Republicans, you know, in the way that they view life. From our standpoint, from Bartlett's standpoint, where do we get caught in the switches? Well, the motor fuel tax, right? So the governor has not released that. Video gaming revenue, the governor has not released any of those funds. There's a couple other things, local 911 funding from wireless surcharge. None of those things are being released. You would think that they would be able just to pass a simple bill, and there have been bills introduced. Representative Marty Moylan from Des Plaines has introduced a bill that would say, look, let's go ahead and free up those funds, because in reality, the state's collecting them, right, and they're just sitting there. But the governor has said, look, I don't really want to do the budget in a piecemeal fashion, so he's asked the Republicans in the General Assembly not to vote for any of those items. Again, because of the time of year that we're down there, those votes would require a supermajority to take effect now, and even with the Democrats in control, at least in the House, they don't have enough members that are willing to vote for items like this to get to the 71 votes needed. And with Rauner holding off the Republicans, these bills aren't going to happen. Again, I would suggest to you that at the earliest that I see anything really happening would be after the first of the year. And then, even then, if they're still at loggerheads because of the differences, you may not see any movement until sometime in February when the governor, quite frankly, has to deliver a 2017 fiscal year budget address when we don't even have the 2016 budget in place. The comptroller would also say that a lot of these funds that are just sitting there, because she does not have the statutory budget in place, she cannot release those funds. And so a lot of that stuff is just sitting there, and it's, quite frankly, I've never seen anything like it, and I've been down there for almost 30 years. This is the first time in my time down there that we've ever gone in a protracted, we're now in the 5th month of no budget. You can, at least I clearly can see both sides of this. I'm not trying to editorialize on who's right, who's wrong. That's up to the politicians to decide, and ultimately to hopefully reach some type of an agreement. But again, you're caught in the switches. We have some grants that we've applied for, and nothing, and I mean nothing, is moving. Some of the things that you do see or hear about in the papers, some people who are getting paid are because of court orders. So in reality, Medicaid facilities, people that are on Medicaid, that has all been court ordered, and that's why those checks are being cut. But everything else, not moving. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I don't mean to be all doom and gloom. Normally, I'd be here to tell you that we've done this or that, or gotten a few things passed for you. But this has just sucked the oxygen out of the room completely. So if anybody has any questions, I'm here to answer them.
What are the chances that Springfield will hold the LGDF?
Well, the governor, quite frankly, wants to cut that. And I would say there is not strong support for that right now in the General Assembly. So I would say today, now ultimately when they get in that room and somebody's trying to cut a deal, is that going to be on the table? I would say yes, it is. But I think that the coalition of mayors and trustees around the state have really been whispering in the ears of their local members, and I would suggest you do the same, that you talk to all your local members to tell them, look, that's got to be off the table, because he was looking at doing from the 8% down to 4%. So that's a huge cut. But so I would say it's less than 50% chance that would happen.
Okay.
We thought you were going to bring us a check, Tom. Any other questions? I had a chance to talk with him earlier. Thank you for coming up.
Okay,
Letting
thank
us know
you.
what's going on, yep.
Okay,
Next time, bring better news.
exactly. Hopefully I'll be here after.
Shaw. Yep. Next item we have this evening is we have a presentation from our new auditing firm regarding our audit. So you can use this better. Lauterbach and Auditor.
Thank you. My name is Jamie Wilkie. I'm one of the audit partners with Lauterbach and Amen. I will be covering for you tonight the audited financial statements for the fiscal year ended April 30th. You should have a large bound document before you, so I'll give you a few page number references as we briefly go through the document, and then certainly take any questions that the board might have as well. First of all, just to let everyone know, this is about a 6-month process from start to finish. It is our first year with the village, so with that being said, there's always some additional work in that first year. What I can tell you is a very clean audit process, evidenced by the fact that we had no material adjustments as part of our audit testing, meaning the books were fully adjusted by Jeff, Todd, and the rest of the staff. So we certainly thank them for all of their efforts. It's not very often that we get to come in and make that comment during an audit presentation, so certainly the very, very highest level of preparation went into preparing for the audit. So thank you to Jeff and Todd and the rest of the staff. That's also evidenced in the village's audit opinion, which you'll find on pages 1 through 3 of the document. The village received what we call an unmodified or clean audit opinion. That is the highest level opinion we are able to issue. That means the financial statements are free of any material misstatement. And again, you'll find that on pages 1 through 3 of the large bound document. Immediately after the audit opinion, you'll find a section we call Management's Discussion and Analysis. Staff has provided 13 pages here. This is really the executive summary to the audit. It is a very large document. There are a lot of numbers and disclosures. Jeff and Todd have done an outstanding job of capturing some of the key transactions for the year, really focusing on revenue and expenditure trends, activities within capital assets, long-term debt. So really a nice snapshot of the village for this fiscal year in those 13 pages. At the very high level, the results of operations, I just want to mention that the general fund ended the year with about a 6-month reserve. Also, it exceeded budgetary expectations for the year, and you can see that outlined on page 67 of the large document. So if you're wondering how revenues and expenditures with regards to the budget ended for the year, again, you'll find that on page 67 of the report. Flipping all the way to the back of the report then to page 109, you'll find what we call our statistical section. You'll find 10 years of trend information provided here. From the board's perspective, it gives a nice historical context as you're reading that management discussion and analysis, the executive summary. If you're curious about what property taxes, for example, looked like 5 and 10 years ago, this is a great resource to find that type of information. And again, that will start on page 109 and take you all the way through the back of the report then. We did have one management letter recommendation that you'll find in the smaller bound document, really just kind of a housekeeping recommendation as it relates to new GASB statements for pension reporting. So next year is the big year for the village, the year in which our unfunded pension obligations have to be recorded on the balance sheet. So really it's more of an informative management letter recommendation, making sure we're coordinating with the actuary and getting the information required to meet the standard. Any questions that I can answer for the board?
Just one highlight that I made when I was such a small amount of reading material here. You guys made some comments about the net position, and I'm assuming that is decreasing from what your notes said just because of depreciation?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So that's the discussion I think you're referencing in that management discussion and analysis.
Okay.
I believe MD&A page 3 at the bottom will highlight what you're discussing.
Yeah. There we go. Now, is it fair to say that that net position would be comparable to in like a business's balance sheet? Is that like
Total
comparable?
equity. Net position is total equity.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
So, okay, that makes sense. That's all I had. Anyone else? No? Our financial gurus? All right. Well
If there's
done.
any follow-up questions, obviously, they can get a hold of us. So
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Kudos to Jeff. Well done, Jeff. And team.
You know, Mayor, excuse me, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the Finance Department staff, Todd Dowden, Millie Olsek, and Matt Coulter, who really play a key role in producing this report. And I'd just like to take this time to thank them and the Finance Department staff.
Well, it's good to hear comments like we rarely get to say this about a report. So you guys did a really, really good job, and we're proud of that. So thank you. And it was good, interesting to see a different, some of the things that are in this audit are shown a little differently. That's why I was a little confused with some terminology than previous audits. So it kind of helped me understand some of the different numbers and stuff. But well done. All right. Moving along, next item on our agenda this evening is for questions and answers for the board. Anyone? Hearing none, we'll move on to the town hall portion of the meeting this evening. I know many of you have spoke in reference to a couple of the agenda items that are coming up. We have done as a board, I guess I can't speak for everybody, but from what I garner from my conversations, a lot of reading and a lot of listening. So I would really request that if you do make comments this evening, that we keep those to 3 minutes. Tonight is going to be one of those nights where I will hold you to that. So if anybody would like to address the board this evening, feel free to step up to the podium and state your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Tom Smogalski, 347 Leela Lane in Bartlett, longtime resident. I'm here on behalf of my daughter, Amanda Smogalski. She bought a home at 122 North Elroy. In the spring, it was a foreclosure, needed a lot of work. There was mold, plumbing issues, electrical, etc. We did all the work, did it to code, did a real nice job, put drain tile in the basement, new driveway, new furnace, new air, I mean the works. It's a really nice, cute little home. Her circumstance changed where she cannot be back in the house until this summer. So we rented it out in the meantime. After a couple heavy storms, we had water coming up in the basement from the floor drain, and I had it rotted. There were some tree roots, cleaned it out. The water came back again. Had the plumber come out, he said it's clear. I'm at lost. Why is this backing up? So I called some plumbers, and they told me that the village has a program where they put in overhead sewers to eliminate this problem. So I called Public Works and a plumbing contractor who's approved by the village, and they said, we're sorry, that's only for owner-occupied units only. I'm not a plumber, but I feel like the issue is external from the streets that's causing a problem in the basement. So I have to reconfigure the plumbing in the basement to accommodate the sewers outside. That's my understanding. What I'm asking the board is to change that policy or ordinance. Why is it just to owner-occupied units only? It will be owner-occupied come June. Either my daughter will be in there or this tenant, she showed a lot of interest in buying it, but she won't buy it with this issue because it needs the overhead sewers. If the village doesn't do it, then my daughter will move back in. We'll have it done at that time. But either way, it needs to be done. So I'm asking, I don't know if this would be an exemption or to change the ordinance. I appreciate your consideration on that.
Thank you, Mr. Smogalski.
Thanks.
I believe we'll be talking about that later, and it's on committee, so thank you. Anybody else like to address the board at this time?
Good evening. My name is Pam Schilling. I'm from 111 South Hickory, and I'm here to talk about the application by Daniela's Bistro for a liquor license and gambling at the end of my block. I'm going to read what I've written because I won't go off half-cocked that way, and I think you'd much rather hear an organized request. So, at the last Plan Commission meeting, Mr. Zykowski had many character witnesses that night who testified to his wonderful character. Most of these people were not even Bartlett residents. At the same time, a village trustee, a trusted servant of the village of Bartlett, gave
By
the
the way,
final presentation.
why don't you mention my name? It was myself that was there.
That's fine.
Okay.
I was trying
Just want
to be
everyone to know
anonymous.
that.
That's fine. Gave the final presentation also praising the character of Mr. Zykowski, telling the residents we were trying to interfere with his dream of opening his bistro, and finally strongly encouraging the entire Plan Commission to approve the special use application, the request for a liquor license so he could open his bistro with video gambling and outside seating. The neighboring residents have no objection to Mr. Zykowski's dream of opening up a bistro with gambling. However, there are many, many other vacant places in the village, within the village limits, which would serve his needs very well. Why does it have to be at this particular location? We want to see services such as we already have, like the bank and the doctor's office, something that will enhance our neighborhood and not take away from it. However, the truth of the matter is that Mr. Zykowski's character was never in question. That was a distraction. In fact, when he came to my home uninvited, I told him I had nothing against him. I just didn't want video gambling in my neighborhood. The true matter, not to be confused with what we would be led to believe, is that the village of Bartlett willing to allow gambling facilities in established residential communities? That's the real question here, and that's the real issue. We've asked you not to approve this request. The first time I came before the board, I asked you not to make any decision until the gambling policy in the village of Bartlett was established. Clearly, that is irrelevant. The property is 1/2 block away from historical homes, and adding this type of business would certainly not enhance our neighborhood or property values. It's right between the Bartlett Historic Train Station and the bike shop, both of which attract the community and the children of our town. We don't need another gambling establishment. We already have 9. I was unable to attend the last board meeting, but my husband attended. He explained that you asked Mr. Zykowski to add additional indoor seating. According to his new plan, instead of 9 seats in his restaurant, he now has 12. The outdoor seating doesn't really matter because that's not available most months of the year when it's winter or fall. There's the argument that gambling provides good income to the village. As we recently read in the Examiner, from its inception, $211,503 has been realized as a result of allowing video gambling in Bartlett. My question to you is, what's been done with this money? Where is it? What services are being provided for the village residents as a result of this gambling money?
Ma'am, just so you know, you're over time, but as long as you can wrap it up here, that'd be...
I can wrap it up quickly. Thank you very much for allowing me. Every resident has a right to know the answers to these questions. We've never seen any action about it. We've heard a lot. We read something recently in the Village Examiner about December's meetings, about the committee as a whole, but we haven't any answers about it. According to the Village of Bartlett website, the Plan Commission consists of village residents, and now the makeup of the Plan Commission is called into question in my mind. It's led itself, the Plan Commission is led by somebody who's not even a resident of Bartlett. Imagine my astonishment when, after the Plan Commission approved this special license, someone walked over to Mr. Zykowski, shook his hand, and said, "We're in business." I don't know who that was. I thought the matter would then have to be reviewed and approved or denied by the village board. I was amazed at the impropriety of this comment after the meeting. My last question is, why does the discussion of the bistro fall under the current standards? The village residents have been asking you to resolve that before this license was approved. One last interesting fact is that every set of minutes from the Plan Commission meetings addressing this particular request have never appeared on the website. I don't know that you even realize that. If the public hearings were truly public, I would think the process would be transparent enough so that the citizens of Bartlett could see what is going on in their community. I have a very queasy feeling in the pit of my stomach. And Trustee Ahrens, you used to live in my neighborhood. I'm right across the street from where you used to live, so you know exactly where that's at.
Ma'am, your time is up. Thank you. Anyone else like to address the board at this time?
Shonick, 925. Thank you guys for what you do up there. You don't always see people at their best. You see people when they're mad, complain. I haven't been shy about one up here. I give you my complaints or input, so I hope I've done it respectfully. And thank you for all the times that you listen and take it into consideration. Today I'm coming here to talk to you about U46. Many of you know about 15, 20 years ago, there was a big movement to secede from U46 by Bartlett. It didn't work. It kind of gave Bartlett a black eye. And at that time, I had a small child in the system. I did not know the full implications of what U46 meant to a homeowner, to a parent, to a resident. After going through the system, we had a terrible experience with my son. And every time we tried to work with them, we got stonewalled, told they would improve it, and it never happened. Can't go back and change it. But during the last 6, 7 months, after we elected these people to U46, I've started to pay attention to the board and how they do things. It's the most unprofessional board I've ever seen. Leadership starts at the top. We see good leadership here on the board and the staff. We don't see that there. It affects everybody in Bartlett and all the neighboring communities. They don't seem to listen to anybody because they have too big of an audience. What I'm asking is that the village start taking a proactive stance into what U46 means to the community. I'd like to suggest something I saw at Carroll Spring last month, where they invited all the public bodies that serve Carroll Spring to have a question and answer session with the residents. Now, I would like to see that just with U46. We have enough to talk about. And I'm going to encourage the mayors of the other towns to do the same thing. We need to be united with this. I'm also going to suggest, and I've already talked to Kevin about this, that the mayors of all the communities have a private sit-down with U46. The biggest elephant on the tax bill, one of the things causing us to lose good people, good businesses, and we need to find a way to make it work better. I don't think they're servicing us the right way right now. And in order for this community to survive in the future, we have to find a way around the problems that are affecting us right now. Sorry for getting a little emotional, but it's very dear to my heart. And I haven't liked what I've seen there over these last several months. And I don't think they respect us enough.
Thank you, Art. Just to follow up, Art, I have started dialogue with 2 of the mayors, so.
What else is ever going to be there? As you can see, the taverns across
Ma'am, just so you know, you're over your time, but if you just wrap it up, that's fine.
I'll wrap it up. It's in your hands. And we hope that you make the right decision.
Thank you, Ms. Troike. Anybody else like to address the board at this time? I don't think so. I was out in my yard too. That was very odd. I was heading for the bomb shelter, so. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. Do we know why that was? What happened? Okay, so it's an extra special test? All right. Anyone else? I'm sir? We can't hear you. I'm sorry. Could you just leave it a little closer and name?
Well, good. I thought it was me.
It's not on.
Oh, better?
There we go.
Sorry about that.
All right. My name is Mark Paterna. I live at 329 West North Avenue in Bartlett. I'm not here to complain about Daniela's, which might be a surprise. I just want to make a comment. I'm looking at this whole process, going back and forth between the building committee and this meeting. I sense there's a real lack of vision for Bartlett and real lack of communication. And it's probably we need to do better as a community, as village trustees and as board members, the planning commission, to articulate what our vision is and decide before we have these individual site approval processes going on. We need to decide where we want our businesses located, what types of businesses we want to locate, and where. Because if you don't have a general overarching plan, this whole process is just going to repeat itself. It's really a distraction to Bartlett. So thank you for your time, people.
Thank you for that comment. Anyone else like to make a comment at this time?
My name is Tom Floyd. I'm 150 Shady Lane, Bartlett. Perfect timing. I just walked in the door. I don't know what's been said and what the topics are, but I know Daniela's is on the agenda tonight. I don't know who the petitioner is on Daniela's, and I don't really care. That's not the point. I'd like to just talk about economic development, and I look at this as kind of interesting because I think tomorrow night you start the brainstorming for economic development. So here's I guess I see a little nugget, small as it is, of economic development for the community. I know there's been some concerns one way and the other, some promoting it, some negative to it. And I kind of look back at it, and I had a number of years on the board, and my personal views on business development, which businesses should and should not be here. And I've drifted away from that, of sort of having to put the blessing on whether somebody arrives here in Bartlett. As I look at it, I've gone to gaming establishments when the riverboats first came in. I had a potential financial interest in that. And what surprised me was I looked at them as sort of floating casinos from Nevada, that type of a thing. But when I went onto the casino, I saw that many people, to me, were using them as entertainment. Instead of taking an evening and going to St. Charles or Randall Road or Marcus Theaters in Addison are going all the way up to Hoffman Estates and dropping $10 on a movie, $8 on a popcorn, and $5 on a Coke. They go and spend $20, $25, $30 for an evening of gambling. For a lot of people, it's not gambling. It's entertainment. They have fun putting money into a machine, playing video poker. And I look at what's, as I understand, I think there's 9 licenses currently in Bartlett.
I think that's right.
Moretti's being one of them.
Yep.
O'Hare's being one of them. I think, does McMay's have one?
Yeah.
So there's at least 3 there and maybe more that were established businesses before. So I don't see a big push, maybe there will be, for some of these establishments where everybody kind of knows they're really there for the gaming, not for the food and for the drinks. But I go back to some of my days on the board and think of the board has a tough time. You've got to weigh the positives and the negatives that people present. I mean, that's your job. But you also have to look at the hyperbole of it, the exaggeration on either side of the issue. I look back in the period I was on the board and think if we had focused on the negatives, and there were many, there'd be no bike path between Prospect and South Bartlett Road. People on Wilcox, I think it's Wilcox, were deadly against it. In fact, such that I remember one evening when many people spoke and a person got up, said, why spend the money? No one's going to use it. They can walk along Wilcox. They can walk along Amherst. They won't use it. Next person got up and said, it's going to jeopardize our families. We're out in the backyard. There's going to be a constant stream of people.
Just so you know, Mr. Floyd, you're over your time. So
I'm sorry. Okay. So that just to summarize, that wouldn't be here. The Shell Station wouldn't be here. The Countryside Funeral Home wouldn't be here. There'd be no McDonald's on 59 if you listened only to the negative side and made a decision. I think it's your responsibility to not necessarily decide who should be here and who shouldn't be here, but evaluate the pluses and the minuses, toning down the hyperbole, and looking at what it's going to do for the village. And I think something like this brings more eyes downtown, which is what's important. Thanks.
thank you, Mr. Floyd. Anybody else like to address the board at this time? Hearing none, I will move on to the standing committee reports this evening. First standing committee reports under Planning and Zoning, Chairman Ranke.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have one item on planning and zoning this evening that was not on the consent agenda, and that is Daniela's Bistro. And this is case 15-09. It's a special use for liquor and outdoor seating for a bistro/video gaming establishment. Jim, can you give us a little bit of background?
Thank you, Trustee Ranke. This is brought back to you after, as you've heard, Daniela's went back to the Plan Commission as they expanded and revised their petition for the special use for the liquor license and for outdoor seating. Just again, the location map, it is right there at the corner of what used to be the Bartlett Station Cleaners, 300 Bartlett Avenue at the northwest corner of Bartlett and Hickory Avenue. Petitioner wants to have outdoor seating for during the nice weather, and then also have indoor seating and video gaming. He originally had a petition that showed 9 seats, 4 outside and 5 inside, including the gaming. He revised his site plan to show the 12 seats outside, 8 and 12 inside. So he has 28 total seats maximum for this. He expanded the inside to add a second bathroom so that he can accommodate the additional seating, and he reduced his gaming stations from 5 down to 4. This went back to the Plan Commission. Obviously, you have the testimony from the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission did recommend approval of it subject to the conditions and findings of fact that are in your report. And that's where you're at today for the vote on the final ordinance.
Speaking of which, just parliamentary procedure-wise, I think we should probably get a motion on the floor, so I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Is someone going to make the motion?
What are you asking?
He's asking, he doesn't want to make the motion to approve of the ordinance, so he's asking he's
Why?
apparently may be opposed to it. So as the chair, he's entertaining a motion, so he's looking for someone.
Okay.
First
I'll
time we've
entertain
done
a motion that we pass,
You'll make a motion. You won't entertain.
that's right, that's right.
I'm sorry.
Well, no, I want to say this, I want to be politically correct.
Well, let's have a motion.
The motion is made, okay? For case number 15-09, Daniela's revised special use for liquor and outdoor seating for bistro/video gaming establishment.
Second? Anyone?
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second the motion.
All right, Trustee Danny made a motion. Trustee Ranky seconded the motion. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I have two questions, and I have a few comments. First and foremost, are the minutes of the Plan Commission related to this petition on the website or not?
They usually are placed on the website after the Plan Commission approves them.
Okay.
And they have not had another meeting. We usually put those on then right after the Plan Commission approves them.
Okay. Wait. Okay, well, Jim, I'm going to ask you then if you would talk to this lady after the board meeting and make sure that you two are both on the same page. Can we do
Okay.
that?
Let's respond to that question, though.
Okay.
I was just clarifying that the minutes that have not yet been approved by the Plan Commission are on the website in the board packet.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've read them.
All right, Paul.
I've read them. In draft form?
Yes.
Okay.
Draft form, that's correct.
Okay.
They're there.
Does that make sense, ma'am? They were actually in,
Yeah, but going back to March, there are very, very few minutes that are included, so the draft must take a long time to approve that. I have a copy of this if anybody is interested.
Well, they've provided the minutes to us. You know, for example, your comments, I've read your comments.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's a public hearing, so you would
Right.
think it would be put on the website for the public to read as well.
Thank you.
you got to give the members an opportunity to approve the minutes, though, unfortunately.
Well,
Usually it's once a month, so.
Go next.
and let me ask another question. Our sign procedure changed. There was mention of that during the Plan Commission hearing. I drove by and saw a generic-looking sign.
Right.
What's going on there?
We changed the sign procedure, just happened to be that was the first meeting. We went to what a lot of communities do, where we just post a generic sign and say, call the village for additional information about any particular public hearing. It's going to be for zoning, Plan Commission, all of those. And we had our Public Works people make those signs and place them up there.
I understand that that's something that some other communities do. I'm not a big fan. It places the onus on the residents to call into the village and find out what's going on versus somebody who's walking by, walking a dog, walking with their kids, can kind of look at the notice and say, oh, okay, there's a zoning petition, there's something going on. So I don't particularly care for that procedure. And I would encourage you folks to take a look at that. And maybe we can go back to the way we used to do it.
The other way we were placing the expense and the burden on the petitioner to make the sign and then put it in the window. Sometimes those signs deteriorated by the time the public hearings were out there. You know, if they made it on their own, so we had a lot of them that they just blurred out, and so we decided to just make this move in this direction.
Well, my comments stand. With regards to this particular use, when the petitioner first approached the village board, I was really excited because here we are talking about this TIF, the possibility of a TIF and redeveloping downtown and doing some things to help downtown, and it needs it, obviously. And I was very excited about the petition. And, as I learned more, I think at one of the meetings I said to you, you're going to have to make a decision whether your principal use is a bistro or it's a video gaming establishment. And we've had some subsequent conversations, and we want to fine-tune our existing zoning ordinance and other village code provisions related to video gaming. So we do have policies in place, and I'm comfortable with a lot of those policies. So to me, the issue on this matter really is, are we talking about a bistro or are we talking about a video gaming establishment? And as I look at this, as I read the comments of the residents, I think many of their points are well taken. It doesn't seem like it's a character assassination. You seem like perfectly good people. So I'm going to disregard that as former Trustee Floyd's hyperbole. But I'm going to vote no on this because I think that what I'm seeing in the materials is a video gaming establishment and not a bistro. So I think the choice has sort of been made, and, there we are. So I am going to vote no on this measure.
Well, I've had the opportunity to speak to a lot of people in town as well, and I think that's what we have to do as trustees, is listen to the community. And even though I can't say that we always hear negatives about gaming coming into town, I will say that by far it is overwhelmingly against, that I talk to people, is overwhelmingly against having video gaming establishments coming into town. And so we've got to pay attention to the residents in that area, and I think that's important. I also have an issue with the findings of fact that we try to go by. I especially have an interest and a concern about health interest when it comes to video gaming. We can't particularly say that we've got to be concerned about all people with gaming addictions, and yet I think it's something we need to be concerned about to some degree. And so I don't think it meets the criteria of the findings of facts of 1 and 2, and that concerns me as well. And lastly, I also think that the extra seating is just kind of a smoke and mirrors thing, basically to show that we're doing more seating when you really won't ever be able to use the seating. And it certainly just isn't the vision that I have for Bartlett. So I also will be voting no.
Well, if there's any other comments, questions from the board?
I have a couple additional comments I'd like to make. This board that I serve on, we voted the TIF down, and it seems to me that I am very concerned on the direction the board is taking with the downtown businesses in our area. And I believe in my heart that more support should be given to the downtown businesses. We have businesses down there right now that have mortgages on their homes. They have loans against their business. They're trying to put children through school, and they're dying. They're absolutely struggling to survive. We have a 20% plus or minus vacancy rate in the downtown area. This evening, we have a gentleman sitting before us that wants to make an investment in our community. And the numbers, I'm not going to say the numbers because I don't know for a fact, but he wants to make an investment in our downtown area. I've personally visited the area where you're at. That's been vacant for over a year, to my knowledge. And I know that I've also visited the bistros that we have in the area. And as Mr. Floyd had said before, I've seen people use it for entertainment, for recreational purposes. I didn't see rowdy people in these establishments. They were playing the nickel and penny slots. And I went over and asked a couple people at some of the other establishments why they were there. And they said, I had to just get out of the house. And they were all my age or older. So I don't think that the residents in the general area are even going to know that this bistro exists. And I think they can coexist very, very safely and without any disruption to their personal lives to the residents. I also wanted to say that we really need to do something to generate some traffic in this area. We had 13 gaming establishments originally that were issued licenses, and that's down to, I believe, 9 now. We have 6 bars and 3 gaming establishments, and so that's a net difference. We've lost 4. So obviously, if it's not working for them, they're not going to do it. The investment he's making in this area, I asked the gentleman, the petitioner, why specifically have you earmarked gaming? And he says, I need it to survive in my business. I've gone through difficult times in business before, and I've reached out to try and do something to save my business. And here we have the opportunity of allowing somebody to come into this village to make an investment. Is it the perfect investment? No, obviously it's not, judging from the reaction that I'm hearing from people. And, I want to clarify one thing, all right? I was the individual that went to the Plan Commission and spoke, but I spoke as a private citizen. I did not identify myself as a trustee of this village. I gave my address, and I spoke to the Plan Commission. I did not, at the plan, you can look at the record, I did not identify myself as a trustee. So we had these gaming facilities before, and some of them have gone by the wayside. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to vote yes for this. And if I'm not on somebody's Christmas card list because I am the voice of, or try to help the businesses in this community, and if I'm not on somebody's Christmas card list or I'm not being invited over for Thanksgiving, I'm doing in my heart what I believe is correct for this village and have this village grow and prosper. Thank you.
Anybody else like any comments? Discussion?
I wanted to add a few things to Mr. Daney's comments. This was a particularly difficult decision for me. That's my old neighborhood, my old hood. And I wasn't sure that I liked very much for a gaming establishment to go in there. I too visited the other strictly gaming establishments in the village. And I have to tell you, it wasn't anything like I thought it would be. It's quiet, it's orderly, it's pleasant. I know, because we all have heard, that another gaming establishment would make Bartlett the video gaming center of the northwest suburbs. Well, not necessarily so, because a lot of other villages have as many, if not more, gaming establishments. And then I thought, well, I want to support my old neighborhood. I want to support my old neighbors, and I'm just going to vote no, because I don't want another gaming establishment. Sorry, only because I wouldn't use it. But I do believe in downtown Bartlett, and having that building vacant for over a year is far, far more significant than putting a gaming establishment in there and having the building occupied. That vacant building at some point in time is going to affect that neighborhood, and we don't want that either. And we want to welcome businesses to our village. I came in here tonight as sure as shooting to vote no, but I can't in all good consciousness turn away a legitimate business, no matter how funky I think their business plan is. So I will be voting yes. And welcome to Bartlett.
Anyone else?
I just want to say I also attended the public hearing at the Plan Commission, and I didn't speak. I just went to listen, and I wanted to hear from the residents and hear what they had to say. And I'm glad I did, because I will also be voting no on this. So that's all I wanted to say.
And I think For the record, I spoke with Trustee Hopkins a little bit on the psychology of these meetings. So I think somebody used the term hyperbole. When you go into these public hearings and you expect a conglomerate of folks that are on one side of an equation, right? They're all going to go with this like-minded sense of what they're going to be talking about. The odds of getting somebody on the other side that's a neighbor of those folks to stand up and say anything is very remote, even if they don't believe in what the other side is saying. So I think everybody's got to, when you're in a position of leadership, you've got to understand that dynamic. This goes to some of the comments about listening to negatives and positives. So, yep.
I knocked on a lot of doors while campaigning. I live on the DuPage County side. I introduced myself, how many years I lived in town. 27 years at the time I was running for office. When I made it to the north side of town, I rang the doorbell. An elderly lady came to the door, and I said, "My name is Vince Carbonaro. I've lived in town 27 years. She cut me right off. "Yep, so who are you trying to impress? I've been here 54 years. And she made me promise, and I quote, "Don't turn out to be a piece of shit politician," before she signed my petition. I made a promise, and I'm listening to the taxpayers. I quote this lady who showed up at the meeting, "You know, I think everybody was just waiting for all the old timers to die so nobody would remember what it was like downtown." The residents have spoken. I represent the residents. The answer is no. Sorry.
All right. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to add one last thing. And I've listened to the comments around it, and everybody in their heart believes what they're doing is correct, just as I do. But judging from the reaction of what we've been saying, yes and no and whatnot, I personally am very disappointed with the vote that we're about to take this evening. And in my heart, I believe that this is just another slap in the face of the businesses in the downtown area. Thank you.
Okay. No other comments? We have a motion on the table, and I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Kammerer?
No.
Carbonaro?
No.
Daney?
Yes, very loudly.
Hopkins?
No.
Ranky?
No.
Aaron's?
Yes.
Motion is denied. Moving along, next item we have on our agenda this evening is under Building Committee, Chairman Hopkins.
There's nothing to report tonight.
Thank you, Chairman Hopkins. Next item we have on our agenda this evening under Standing Committee Reports is under Finance and Golf Committee, Chairman Daney.
Yes, Mr. President, we have the 2015 estimated property tax levy. And with that, I'm going to ask our Finance Director, Jeff, to please take it from here.
Thank you, Trustee Daney. At the October 20th committee meeting, the Village Board discussed the proposed property tax levy. This evening, we prepared the estimated property tax levy, and I'd like to recap that. The total levy for 2015, which includes the general corporate fund, police pension, and debt service, totals $9,265,478. It is a decrease of $174,334, or 1.85% from the 2014 extension. This estimated levy must be established at least 20 days prior to the adoption of the final levy, which is scheduled to be adopted December 1st. Therefore, the estimated levy must be established at this board meeting. So with that, I will turn it back to you, Trustee Daney.
Do we have any questions or comments?
Yes. I would like to put a motion on the floor to table this until we actually bring back the discussion on the utility tax, which will have a bearing on this.
Anyone else?
I would have to agree with Vince.
Are you making a motion?
Good idea.
We're just discussing it right now. And when would that be? Because we have a deadline that we have to have the property tax levy correct.
That's correct, but we always build in an extra couple of weeks on that schedule. So while we may have to, put it in at the end of an agenda, I think we do have the calendar flexibility to do that.
Let me ask, how much time would staff need?
Relative to?
What Trustee Carbonaro is asking, he wants it tabled, but I'm wondering if we could table it just to the next meeting. Would that give everybody enough time? Satisfy you?
Can we talk about both of those?
Well, first of all, we have to because we do have the time frame, but I have scheduled the discussion relative to the utility tax for the next board meeting and committee meeting, so certainly we'll be ready to do it then.
We could, at that point in time, after that discussion, act on this?
Yes, you would have to.
We would have to, all right.
I don't want to rush that. I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I don't want to rush that discussion.
Fine.
I think I would prefer having the utility tax discussion at budget time, when it's properly discussed, and having the EAV and tax levy discussion now. That's my preference.
Well, let me ask you this. If there's a change, utility tax, if we decide on a change to the utility tax.
Midstream, mid-budget stream.
Midstream, and I know that's a pet peeve. Would it affect the tax levy amount at all?
It could. I mean,
I'm
money coming from somewhere, it's got to come from somewhere.
Well,
I'm sorry, ask that question again.
If we agree to change the utility tax in some way,
yes.
meaning that we're going to decrease revenue, or it's not going to happen, but decrease revenue, is that going to change the tax levy?
That's up to you. I mean, if the tax levy's already passed, it won't affect it at all. But you have the ability now, until you approve the tax levy, or the tax levy, which has to be approved by the end of December, you have the ability to move it up or down all you want, irrespective of the utility tax.
Okay, my understanding is that we could have some conflict as far as time. So if that being the case, I move that we approve the estimated 2015 property tax levy to be established at $9,265,478.
Second.
Was there a motion to table?
No.
On the table?
I thought it was a suggestion.
Did you move to table? I couldn't quite hear you.
And it was seconded?
It was seconded? Okay, well, you have to vote on the motion to table first.
Who made a motion to table?
I guess
I did.
Vince did.
Who seconded it?
I did.
I did. Okay, I couldn't hear it. I'm sorry.
All right, missed it.
There was no.
All right, we have a motion to table it.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Carbonaro, seconded by Trustee Hopkins to table the discussion on the tax levy. So we'll take a roll.
On the estimated.
On the estimated tax levy. So let's call the roll, and if it passes, we will table this to the next meeting.
I don't think actually that has to be voted on. I think any trustee could actually table any agenda item for any reason.
It requires a vote. There shouldn't have been discussion, but I couldn't hear that he tabled. So there's a vote on a motion to table. You're talking about a different procedural item where you could put something to committee, but this was a motion to table under Robert's Rules of Order that has precedent.
Discussions should stop at that time and we should move along, but I didn't hear the second either. So let's call the roll.
Trustee Carbonaro?
Yes.
Daney?
No.
Hopkins?
Yes.
Ranky?
Yes.
Aaron's?
Did you say errands? Yes. Could you speak up, please?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. No. Are we in
Hammer.
Springfield?
Hammer?
Yes.
Is that a supermajority? All
Right.
right. This is a motion to carries the tax levy, estimated tax levy will be tabled to the next meeting, or next time it shows up. Next item we have on our agenda this evening is under new business. Anybody?
Oh, yes.
We haven't gone through all of them yet, have we?
We got
We haven't gone through all the committees.
My apologies. The next item we have on our agenda is License and Ordinance Committee Chairman Aaron's.
Oh, that's okay. Everything was covered under our consent agenda.
Thank you, Chairman Aaron's. Next item we have on our agenda this evening is Public Police and Health Committee Chairman Carbonaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nothing to report this evening.
Next item we have under the standing committee reports is Public Works Committee Chairman Kammer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Everything we had was put under the consent agenda.
Thank you, Chairman Kammer. Next item we have is under new business. Any new business for the good of the order at this point?
Yep. We've got to, please. I had a couple of things that I'd like to talk to staff about and the board. I've had a lot of interest. Let me rephrase that. I've had some interest of a community garden in the village, and these people would grow vegetables. I'm not into that. I'm into greens, but it's normally on a golf course, so I don't know vegetables, and I don't know. But what they wanted to do, I'm looking for some input.
Isn't that what we have done on Oneida? Isn't that a community? If you want to
Actually,
plant
those are
something,
private
go plant it?
property.
Those are private.
Oh.
And what they wanted to do is afterwards take what they wanted, and then they would split equally between the Hanover Township Food Pantry and
Wayne Township.
Wayne Township, right. So I don't know if that's doable or feasible or whatnot. And the other question I wanted to ask, and, you know, everybody's talking about the utility tax, they're talking about doing this, doing that, and I keep seeing, you know, how are we going to generate revenue if we start doing this? We already lost a petitioner this evening that could have generated some revenue with the gaming machines in the village, and this board turned their back on him. And so I'm wondering if there's ever been any consideration or any thought or anything of installing some red light cameras. Maybe we could generate revenue that way. I don't know if that's the direction we want to go, or...
Can I make a comment?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we can all make...
Putting up red lights to generate income is the absolute wrong reason to do that.
No, I was doing it for safety primarily.
To help safety issues.
Primarily safety.
I don't think we have those issues here. Sorry, Ray.
I'll have to rephrase that. This would be for safety purposes, and secondly, it would be for revenue. I don't know, has there ever been any talk about doing anything?
There has. When that became a popular item some years ago, we had some discussions on how that might work and how it would affect safety versus affecting revenue, and I think the board decided unanimously not to pursue it.
Well, so it's dead?
Well, it's like Frankenstein. It keeps coming back. You guys are a new board. You can, I didn't mean that the way that.
We can certainly do.
Maybe we can put the bowling.
Hey, Ray, we could do a straw poll on red light cameras on the board if you'd like, but I don't think you're going to have much luck.
Right.
I'd be opposed to red light cameras.
I would be opposed to it as well, Ray.
Adam,
Let's put the bowling alley back.
I'm trying to help you with the utility tax.
I would like to just actually look at the information. It wouldn't hurt. It actually wouldn't.
Yeah.
You know?
Wikipedia.
That's
Didn't the company didn't they get sued for something?
But with respect to, are you talking, Vince?
With the red lights? Didn't the company get sued?
Well, there's a couple of different companies. You're right. The one in Chicago had issues, but there's different companies that are operating out in the suburban area.
But with respect to Trustee Daney's first question, that might actually be doable, as opposed to the red light cameras, do we have any land that would actually be open? And I would probably have to address that to Dan in Public Works, because it occurs to me that there's probably, if there's any public land that would be open for tilling in a community garden, would it be in the Public Works area down there or not?
Right next to the lunchroom.
Well, if there was land down there within the Public Works Department, we probably have that cordoned off because of the equipment and things we have. We did look at this a few years ago and identified, while it wasn't public property, probably could have secured some interest in it, and that is along the railroad area behind the town center I think it actually, part of it is Metro and part of it is Flexonics. But not only do you have to find an appropriate place to put it, you've got to make sure they have a water source because people are going to be watering it, and it's got to be big enough to be able to, divide it up into a lot of sections, hopefully not too close to a lot of neighbors because people there every night gardening were going to be a little bit of a problem, and if I recall correctly, it never really took off.
So there's more involved to it than meets the eye, obviously.
Well, yeah, but it could come back just like the red light.
Well, it might be an item we could discuss at strategic planning.
We'd be happy to do that.
And as part of that discussion, let's figure out if we could gauge the public interest in something like that, because it sounds like it'd be labor intensive for the staff, it'd be labor intensive for the gardeners, and a lot of people in town seem to have their own gardens, so it's, maybe it works in some communities, maybe it wouldn't work here. I don't know. I wouldn't pretend to understand that. I try to shrink my garden every year.
Yeah. Well, the people that approached me said that they would, supervise and take care of it and whatnot, so.
Okay. Any other new business at this point?
Yeah, I would definitely like to look at the public notices and how we post them. So basically follow up with what Trustee Ranke brought up.
Now, you're talking about not having us put up just a generic sign for the public meeting and make the petitioner make the sign.
Correct. The way we did it before.
But there's no difference in the content of the sign, as I understand it, between, correct?
Well, no.
One of them is generic that just says it's a public notice.
Right.
Look at the website or call our department. The other one had the date and time of the meeting.
I
now
understand.
we have that on the website.
So I think we need to have some specificity. And a lot, in different communities do things differently. And it costs some money to have a foam core sign made up, but it's part of the zoning process.
Anything else? That brings us to question and answer. Any of that going on? I guess just it might be a good time for me to kind of air out what my opinion is when we start bantering around with adjusting budgets and avoiding tax levies and everything else. We do a budgeting process once a year for a reason, and it's to give these guys some consistency in what they do. And we just went through an audit that shows that they're very professional and consistent at what they do. And I guess, a little disappointed in the fact that we keep bringing up changes to things that we've discussed a year ago when we planned for the entire year. So I don't know the rest of the opinions on the board, but mine are let's move on and into a new budget season, and we'll tackle a new budget when the budget process comes up and not try to piecemeal these things together as we go.
I do believe the utility tax was on the dais before the tax levy. We haven't finished discussing that, and it has a direct bearing on voting on the tax levy. Because if one changes, if we vote on this before we vote on the utility tax, then we're locked in. So in the process of due process, we're going to discuss the utility tax because it was on the dais before the tax levy. That was my point.
And my point would be discussing either one of those changing would be really irresponsible with the way the state, we just found out the state's going to be handling things.
Still needs to be discussed, though.
Yeah. Okay.
I would, just curious, if we could figure out, when we do discuss the tax levy again, what would it do to an average residential house homeowner to raise the levy $1.7 million to make up for what the utility tax generates?
We can do that.
It would be great. Thank you.
That's pretty easy math.
Well, I need to add something. My concern with the utility taxes, we're talking about gas, we're talking about electric, we're talking about possibly shifting this, eliminating that, and whatnot. And there's been, some direction in talking about, doing away with the gas tax and adding it onto the electric tax. And my concern, again, is for the businesses that we have in this community. They came in here, they knew what the ground rules were, and now we're potentially changing those ground rules again. And you walk, we sat here and we looked the other night at a 270,000 square foot building going up in Brewster Creek. And I happened to be with some people over the weekend, and there's a 400,000 square foot building in Brewster Creek. And I'm telling you guys, you know, I've had that problem with electric. You don't walk into a plant and just flip a switch and the lights go on. You have equipment you have to run, you have generators you have to run, you have pumps that have to run, and I could see, again, where we're going to try and do something and shift it on to business in this community, and that's wrong. And I just don't know if we can have an idea of how that would affect our businesses in this community if we did do something with the electric tax.
One of the reasons that we have spent some time to look at this is the board had asked us to look at potentially its impact on some selected businesses, and we're doing that. We're finishing that up, and certainly it isn't the whole community, but it will be, you know, some sampling, and that's what we intend to bring.
Yeah.
You know, I'm getting the feeling that everybody thinks that, you know, the business, you know, they're wealthy because they have a business. Well, I'll tell you, when I had my business, there were weeks, or months, I should say, we were trying to pay ourselves monthly, that I couldn't make it. And I was late on payments and whatnot, and I had to do everything I possibly could to survive. Now, that may not be the case with some of the businesses in Brewster Creek, but I can tell you what, I know that that's the case with some of the businesses in downtown area, and I really don't believe that, you know, the concept that some people have that everyone that owns a business is wealthy is the correct concept. So I need to know what kind of impact that would have. You know, we have to level the playing field. They came in here, they knew what they were getting into, and now we want to change the rules. So we have to get more information on that.
I think it's also important that we look at the 42,000 residents that live in this town and not just look at business. And homeowners...
Well, that's why...
Excuse me.
Sure.
Homeowners are struggling in Bartlett. I don't know if you guys have it, but when I was reading the packet that we get, the monthly report, do you know how many disconnection notices we sent out from our water department? I think it's over 1,000. 1,000, and that's water. So if we could do something as a board to help the taxpayers reduce their electric and their gas tax, I want to do it.
Everybody would like to do that, Mr. Hopkins, and then you're just going to increase the EAV and the tax levy.
Well, and isn't this why we're waiting for the data?
Absolutely.
Next board meeting. So I'm assuming you're going to have data for businesses. I'm assuming that you're going to have data for residents. So we're going to have some context.
We're going to have some samples.
We're going to have
That's all we can do. We had to
If
go
this,
back to
then
the
that.
utilities and try to get them to give us some bills and understand where they come from. And to the best of our ability, we'll have as much information as possible.
Okay.
All I'm saying is let's be realistic about this. We can't shift the burden continually on business and expect businesses to pick up for that. You know, the residents, you know, obviously, if there's something we can do, but somebody has to convince me that there's another method of generating revenue, that we don't have to shift this responsibility all to the businesses in our community.
I'm just wondering, we keep talking about shifting. If we reduce the utility tax, do we do it just for the residents and not the businesses?
Can't do it.
We can't do that, so we're not even discussing that. So there's no shifting. If we reduce the utility tax, it's across the board, businesses and the residents. So we're not shifting anything.
Yeah.
You mean that the residents use the same amount of electricity as... Just clarify that for me.
No, but they're being
consumption
taxed at
tax.
the same rate.
Right.
Right.
So if we reduce the tax, it's for everybody, not just for one.
That's interesting, Matt. Okay. I entertain a motion to adjourn, and we'll be moving right into the committee of the whole meeting.
So moved.
Second.
This is by Trustee Daney, seconded by Trustee Cameron. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Daney?
Yes.
Hopkins?
Yes.
Ranky?
Yes.
Aaron's?
Yes.
Camera?
Yes.
Carbonaro?
Yes.